Hello and welcome to the All Round Coaching podcast, episode number 16. Now, just a little disclaimer before I go into this one. It's not a podcast that's a substitute for any professional mental health advice. Always seek help, obviously, from a professional. We just wanted to go over this subject because it matters to me, and obviously one of my clients has been brave enough to come on and join me. So I will introduce Jenna, my client, who has been with me for some time, and co-host Mel is also here. Hello, guys.
Hello there.
Hello.
So Jenna has been with me just over a year and a half now. Obviously, she was referred to me from a client that was already with me. We hadn't met before. She started out just with, would you say, fitness goals in general? Or...
Yeah, definitely when I first started out, I did just do it for the fitness side of things.
What was your main goal when you started with Claire? Was it just like, I need to lose fat? Was it fat loss? Was it a physique element? Was it an aesthetics?
Yeah, bit of everything. Definitely the fat loss and getting into shape, really.
Yeah, I think a lot of people always start with the aesthetic side, but as we probably coached a little bit further, I'd always say past the magic 3 month mark. That's when you start to gain a little bit more trust with the clients and obviously the coach. You communicate a little bit more, and that's when I got probably more of an insight into the mindset and your mental health side of things.
Yeah.
And how do you find that, like, as a coach? Like, because obviously you'll deal with different types of people and different scenarios, different life processes. Like, obviously when you were working with Jenna, like, I guess you got closer and obviously you naturally form a bit more of a connection, don't you?
Yeah, I think, and I asked Jenna this, like, why did you pick me as a coach? And it was the fact that I understood mental health. Like, I'm not going to say I'm an advocate for it, but I don't like saying suffered, I don't like saying it, but obviously I've suffered with it in the past where you just feel, I always say it's like a little dark cloud coming, and sometimes you either get out of that hole or you don't, and obviously for a long period I didn't until I actually took myself. Obviously exercise was a big part, but I needed a little bit more inner work, and I think for yourself you're quite similar and we resonated on that level.
Yeah, definitely.
How did you find that connection then? Was it just through conversations in sessions?
I'd say so.
Yeah, I think more so as well, obviously, when I had my bad days, because obviously on a PT day, well, you can't pick and choose when the bad days are going to come, and some days it would be on a PT day, so, you know, at first you find yourself sort of making excuses, but then obviously once I got to know Claire and I knew I could talk to her, then I would say, you know, like, today's not a very good mental health day, and that's a good thing because obviously Claire got that.
Yeah, and I always say to be like, every emotion is valid. You're not just there to have a session with someone, pummel them into the ground and then say, right, off you go and deal with it yourself. Like, if you don't help people on the inside, then it's great getting someone transformation, but at what cost? Obviously, looking after someone is always at the forefront of what I do.
Yeah.
So even like saying checking in, just a little bit of communication. So even if you didn't have a session, we'd have a catch up, we'd have a chat, or we'd have a little walk.
Yeah.
And you know, find people train better when you've got a better understanding of where they're at. Like you said, you're dead right, bang on the money. Like, every day is different. Like, I've certainly done it when I've walked into the gym. Like, my head's in a complete tiz, isn't it? And you'll obviously pick up on that energy, don't you? So it's a case of like, right, let's match that. Let's kind of work through it. And sometimes you just need to talk about it, and sometimes it works both ways.
Yeah, I think because I've worked with clients closely, like, I'll always know when there's something up with them, and sometimes all it takes is, are you okay? But I'll always ask twice. They'll either break down in tears or they just pretend they're okay, but I always know they're not. I'll pick up on that vibe, and I always know when you're not okay. Like, we have a laugh and stuff, but we know when to be serious.
Yeah.
So how have you found, like, obviously you've been with Claire for more than a year, like coming up to 2. Have you found that obviously there was good days and then bad days? Like, are they balancing themselves out a bit more, or is it weighed more towards the better days? Like, how are you feeling?
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot more better days now than there were. I mean, obviously there was a lot of days where I literally could not get out of bed. And don't get me wrong, I do still have them days, but I do speak to Claire and she's always there in the back of my head, do not sit in a dark room, get out, get the steps in, you know, and she gives me that push that I need. And as well, on some days when it is a bad day and I'm meant to be training, you know, and I'll message Claire and she'll say, well, let's go for a walk. Yeah. Don't just sit and, you know, let's go. And we've done that, haven't we, a couple of times, and that's helped massively.
Yeah, I think just speaking to someone and not being inside your own head, because obviously you'll always convince yourself that it's worse than what it is, and it's hard to get yourself out of that if you're just with your own thoughts. So it's nice to, obviously getting outside I always found helped massively than just sitting inside with nothing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously your journey wasn't just you've come to me and you're cured, because I don't think people are broken to be fixed, but you were on medication.
I was, yeah. I was on medication actually for quite a long time, for about 4 years, maybe a little bit longer.
Yeah.
And little did I know that I would eventually come off it, which has been an absolutely massive step for me. I've done about 6 months now.
Oh, nice.
And it was a case of just one day waking up and being, I don't want these anymore. I don't feel like I need them. And, you know, I could always go back on them if I need to, but I want to try.
Yeah.
And so far so good.
Oh, that's
which has been great.
And what do you kind of put that, obviously there's a number of factors that happen in life, like would you say that the fitness side of things and coaching helped massively?
Yeah, absolutely. Training, even, you know, changing the lifestyle of what I eat probably, you know, because you don't realise some things that you eat aren't good for you. Drinking, obviously, drinking. And it's only until I was training have I realised how much of a negative impact alcohol has on me.
Yeah.
And it's bad. And it's ironic actually, because I did go out this weekend and I did drink, and yesterday I didn't have a very good day. But it's good now because I can sort of associate it to that. I'm not wondering and I'm not beating myself up. I know that's the reason why.
Yeah, you see that root cause then, can't you? And you can almost understand, right, okay, well I need to either cut myself a little bit of slack or understand, right, this is why I'm feeling this way because of X, rather than it's just come and hit you like a freight train.
Yeah, it's recognising the emotion, and obviously we all drink, but exercise, I wouldn't say exercise is a depressant. Alcohol is a depressant anyway, and it does numb you, but when I was doing study on it stays in the system for 8 days, and it takes your brain that time to recover.
Yeah,
like even just one drink, it's 2 to 3 months for that brain to rewire.
If you don't train and you don't get into the fitness side of things, you would never know that.
And it's a vicious cycle, isn't it, I guess, because if you're not moving your body, you're kind of not releasing them endorphins and that kind of like that movement within your body, and then it almost has a knock-on effect, because then you're not eating well, and then you're not drinking, you know, obviously then you're putting alcohol into your system, and then you're not getting out and doing stuff, and it's almost like it just builds up and builds up. So you've got to break down that stuff, those old habits, to then, which I imagine obviously after six months with Claire, then that's obviously started to have a bigger effect than what you planned.
I think obviously when I don't know, with some of my friends I'll say stuff, and it's like the societal norm is to go out drinking and mask everything. Like if you tell someone you're eating better and you're exercising, then you're classed as obsessed, or it's not seen as normal.
A good example for me is, when was it, one day last week, it was 8 o'clock and I'd not had the best of days and I was feeling really irritated. Now generally, before I was training and before I had changed my lifestyle, I'd be like, oh, just have a glass of wine. One glass would go to two would go to 3. Whereas I didn't do that, and I was like, I fancy going to gym. And I was like, who's this?
Is that when you were in the gym at night?
Yeah.
Fair play to you.
And off I went, you know, and I did like 45 minutes and come out, felt great and slept like a baby. And I'd been struggling to get sleep.
Yeah.
And I was saying to you, wasn't I, you know, again now I've opened another avenue where I've always thought, I don't really want to train at night. I'd rather just get it out of the way. But for me, it's actually a good thing with training later, because it helps me sleep as well.
It ties you out.
I think I said that to you, like if you found that and it actually helps, then you can keep that in as part of your routine. It doesn't have to be, I have to go at this time to do this. Like if you can fit it in and it benefits you more, I would say stick with that. Not just going in the morning, because we all believe that we should train at fucking 6 a.m. or 7 a.m. Just get it done when's best for you, and obviously that does make you feel good.
I found it more so like, obviously we went through a lot with like 2020 and lockdown. Like I was one of those like suckers that got outside, put the running trainers on and went for a run. But it's mad how much like I think moving your body, and actually I do it because I don't know about yourselves, but like when you're at a desk job, like it's all brain work, and sometimes actually physically moving your body can not switch your brain off entirely, but refocus things, because your body's engaged rather than your mind. And I think that can help massively.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think lockdown was fucking horrendous for me. Once you took the gym away, that was it. That was my my coping mechanism was gone. So I think I fell off the edge of the cliff and I thought, nope, I'm done. Luckily, obviously, I got therapy and I didn't jump off the cliff. So I'm still here now, but I do think if exercise obviously doesn't sort it or having a run, like a run wouldn't sort it for me, then you would go more down the therapy route and just talking to someone, because I think there's that stigma, isn't it? Like, oh, that person's got issues, and some people might shy away from it, or people don't talk to you. Or...
Yeah, I think it is difficult as well, because obviously for people who have never battled it, some people don't understand it, some people don't get it, you know, and I mean, I'm fortunate enough, I have a lot of people around me that do understand what I'm going through, and I do have the support. But yeah, I do think, you know, talk about it, you know, and there's a lot more people that suffer with it than you think.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, fair play, like, obviously you just said then, Claire, like, you took yourself to therapy during, was it 2020 or 21?
It was lockdown too, and then it was 2 sessions a week for, God, what, 9-10 months?
And how did you find that? Because obviously you've been training since you were 13, so like, as the counterbalance of that is obviously then going to a professional within that field, then did that then allow you to kind of refocus your mind when it came to maybe an approach to your fitness, obviously your headspace?
Well, it helped me be a little bit more self-aware. It wasn't the fact that it had fixed me, but I could communicate better. So if something was wrong, like, you're always made to believe that you should be positive and happy all the time. And with lockdown, everyone was like, oh, just be positive. Or obviously I had a lot of clients to support, as well as a group of other clients. And I think you just keep it to yourself, and yeah, I don't know.
Because I think that, obviously, when I first started with you, I think after we'd had conversation, I don't know if you felt the same, Jenna, where I got the impression that you were a lot more level-headed when it comes to, like, the way that you think and the way that people behave, because I think you've been through that. Like, you've got more of an empathetic kind of mindset, is that some days you are going to have shit days and it's fine. Like,
I think more so now after therapy. I don't want to say I understand behaviours more, but I take into consideration. No two people are the same, but I listen before I speak. So you could tell me something, and it might be the day later that I'll come back to you, or I'll let it sink in, let that settle, and then I'll come back. But we don't always just speak for a response. Some people just want to be listened to.
Mm-hmm. And so we've had conversations, like, obviously before, like, obviously the last few months, like, where, like, I've obviously gone, oh, this is how I'm feeling about X thing, and then you're like, you've got more of a level head in terms of, I think, if a lot of people, when they've maybe not been through therapy or been through, like, a journey on, like, the mental health, where they almost want to fix it. And in actual fact, I think you said to me a few times, like, every emotion's valid. Like, if you're feeling sad, then that's fine. Like, if you're feeling angry, then that's equally as valid. Like, I don't know if you felt the same.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and I think we're in that phase where everybody says you're not entitled to feel them things, because you're supposed to be super positive, and it's just pushed, like, it's toxic positivity. And I think lockdown spurred that on more. But I do, like, if someone's feeling sad, then just recognise the emotion. Like, you know, when you're pissed off, Jenna, or when you're sad, you'll now go and train, and you'll feel better for it. So same with you, Mel.
Yeah, I just went out for a run last week. Don't know when I was. I don't get. I don't know. I don't know. I think I've said to you a few times, I probably need to go and work more on my kind of my headspace. Obviously, I went through a big thing in 2017 where I think I didn't really deal with it until 2020, 21. Probably lockdown was a big factor. Went to therapy, and there was a big thing. There was an interesting therapy session, and I'll not go into that, but I think it did help actually opening up, talking about, and I was almost unpacking some of the reasons why I felt certain ways. Not necessarily because, I mean, there was a few big life events, but just because I felt like it was good to talk to someone that wasn't going to judge or, I suppose, trying to fix it.
Yeah.
I think that helped massively, and I think I get that from Claire, like, when I've spoken to her in the past, where I think I was listening to a podcast with a guy called Simon Sinek, and I think he was saying sometimes you just need someone to sit in the mud with you. You don't need someone to fix it. You just need someone to listen with you.
Because it's not a quick fix, you know, it's a lengthy process, and, you know, like I've said, I don't get me wrong, I still have my bad days, but not half as bad as what they used to. And I mean, I've just been away for 2 weeks, and I had 2 bad days while I was there. I was in the sunshine, I was in my favourite place, you know, I was with family, but you cannot control when it's going to come, and when it comes, you know, it's difficult. But yeah, getting to the gym helped massively.
And like you said, though, it's recognising to not add to the problem as well. Like, so I guess on those days you'll go, don't need a glass of wine. I'm going to go for a walk instead. I'm going to replace those coping mechanisms, which most people do automatically go to, whether it's food, whether it's booze. Then you swap that out for a more healthier kind of approach.
Yeah, I think people look to mask things rather than manage it, and that's probably where a lot of people are going wrong. They don't deal with it, they don't know how to, and then they'll just suppress it down, have a few bevs, or go out the lads or the girls, have some drinks, and then you've not solved the problem, you've just numbed it until probably a week or two later.
It's not always the booze side of things, though. You'll have people where they don't always go to the booze thing. They'll just kind of sink themselves back into a hole of where I'm not going to speak to anyone. I'm going to completely regress completely from society. Where I'm not saying that the gym specifically is the answer, but if you're actually in an environment with other people that are in not similar places, but are in a place because they want to focus on themselves, then surely that's a better.
Yeah, I think I was one to regress. I do go probably a bit quiet in my down phases. Maybe I didn't have the right support previous, I don't know, but I would always retract back. So I think having the right people around you, if you're fortunate enough, like obviously Jenna, you've got good people, and I think I'd like to say I have now. So I do think that's a massive factor as well. And obviously your support team's going to help you along the way, not hinder you. So yeah, and like if there's any coping strategies that you'd recommend, Jenna, to anyone, what would you tell them?
Yeah, the main thing is, I would say, just don't give up. Reach out and talk, because there is a lot more people out there that do suffer than you think. Getting outside. Again, don't get me wrong, there's, I don't always get my step count in, but it's just about trying, and you've just got to keep going.
Well, everyone's on their own journey, aren't they? And there's sometimes that journey's faster than others for some people, but at least if you're moving forwards and into the right direction, then surely that's all you can kind of do sometimes, isn't it?
Yeah, progress and growth comes beyond, like, you're not just looking to get it perfect. And sometimes I'll say, like, we'll take the step count away and we'll just go for walks, so splitting up your walks throughout the day.
Well, we've actually done that. Well, I have because that was adding to my anxiety, having an actual step target, and I was getting obsessed with it, and I was beating myself up because I weren't hitting it, but I was still making progress. So I was like, look, I'm, although I might not be getting the full step counts in, I am still making progress. So, what can we do to sort of change it? And, so we did take that away, didn't we? Yeah. But still make sure, obviously, that
you're still moving forward, aren't you? Yeah. You're not kind of either stagnating or going backwards, you're still going forwards. But
yeah, for me it wasn't just, oh, here's a step number. Like, walking does impact you. You get to be a little bit more mindful, you get to reflect on your day, and you do feel better from it. It relaxes you. So I always say put your headphones on and just disappear for a bit. I mean, I loved going to the beach, I think that helps as well. So a little bit of, like, disappear somewhere, have some meditation, and just switching off from the world. So it's not necessarily just getting your steps in. Yeah. Obviously we do have things to work towards, and it depends how hard someone wants to be pushed. If you want a massive transformation, I'll push a little bit harder, but as long as we communicate, we know where you are mentally and physically.
I think from you as a coach, like, it's understanding the person and not the number, the people that you've got underneath your wing, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it. You've got to build a good relationship with everybody, haven't you? And you get me, and that's the main thing.
That's always important for me. Like, connection's one of my values, and I think if you can connect with people and communicate, then you do succeed that bit more. It frustrates me more when clients don't communicate with me. That's probably a little pet peeve of mine. So if you were struggling with all this and never spoke to me, I'd probably want to kick your head off. So it's good that you do communicate. Like, I appreciate that, and obviously it takes a lot of trust to talk to someone that was obviously a stranger at one point.
Not anymore.
No, we are good friends now. She's okay. But no, like, some other tips that I found when I was struggling, like journaling. I don't know if that's been one that you've ever got on board with.
No, not really. I've even been doing the counselling side of things, and it didn't work for me.
Yeah. I mean, not everything works for everyone.
Yeah.
But journaling for me, it was like having a busy mind and getting it from my mind to the paper. So I swear by that, but I appreciate it doesn't work for everyone. And I don't like saying counselling, like therapy. Talking to her just wasn't for me. So I'd write things down, she'd read them, she'd ask me stuff, and then she'd give me activities to go away with. So there is different ways of doing it rather than just lying on a couch pouring your heart out and then off you go, because I would never find that helpful either. So knowing what works for you is probably the best thing, not just listening to advice from Debbie down the road that says go to a counselling session and you're fixed, because there is loads of other avenues that would help. Would you agree, Mel?
Yeah, there's different therapy sessions or different ways. I think every individual is different, and there's probably different reasons why people are feeling certain ways. Or obviously, you know, I think I know quite a few people who obviously suffer from depression, and mostly it's because of like grievances in like families and stuff. So it's finding the right way to either not get it fixed, because like you said, it's not one's there to be fixed, are they? But it's more of a coping mechanism. What helps you kind of, I suppose, get a better level on yourself.
I think it's managing it for us. Like, obviously, I got diagnosed with depression. I just refused to live by a label because everyone associates it with you just being a Debbie Downer, constantly feeling like shit. But generally you can't help how you feel. You just manage it. I probably explore it a little bit more, recognise how I feel, accept it, and obviously I can move forward from it rather than wondering why I feel that way and then just spiralling.
I understand it a lot more now, and you know, I do have close friends who also suffer with it, and it's understanding it for them as well, knowing when they need the space, and you know, obviously trying to pull them through it as well. And yeah, it's just a big.
How do you find that they cope with it? Do they have different mechanisms in comparison to you, or do they all kind of fall into like the fitness side of things as well?
Yeah and no. Because again, it's just so personal, isn't it, to every individual.
Everyone's got different vices. Some people go and do yoga, some people run, some people throw themselves into a triathlon. Like, everyone's got their kind of own vices, haven't they?
Yeah.
I think one thing I would say is don't distract yourself from it. Like, obviously throw yourself into something, but recognise why you feel that way and not just either numb or distract. Like, recognise it and try and move forward with it.
Yeah.
Does that make sense, guys? Yeah.
Did you ever feel like you did that?
Maybe. I was a suppressor and a distractor, so my therapist said everything was in a box behind a concrete wall and it was locked. Nobody would get in, and then that was it then. But obviously it bubbles away, and then one day you erupt.
Yeah.
So, but I think at the time, obviously it was lockdown, you were already fucking isolated anyway. But I think when I rang the doctors, they said, oh, you should have come in. But I don't think you've got depression. I just think you're down. They tried to tell me how I felt until I actually went and paid for therapy. So, yeah. That's
how do you feel about it now? Because we've spoke about it like probably a month or so ago around obviously maybe the way that the NHS is going. I know this is probably a little bit in depth and there's been a little bit more research needed, but there's probably a lot to be said for people like yourself, Claire, where obviously you're coaching people where not a medication perspective, but obviously surely there's no good in prescribing people drugs, and this is just my point of view. Like, does it just numb it, or?
Yeah, well, I mean, for me, I always said it's putting a plaster on it. You're not managing it, you're just numbing it, because obviously it's your serotonin and.
Yeah, I don't know. I see both sides with the medication aspect, only because you know you could have some people that are on it with in the mindset of it's just temporary and I want to come off it, but then you've got others who think, you know, that so what if you're on it for life? What does that matter? So I think there's a fine line.
Yeah,
I mean, line with it.
I've never been into medication, like even painkillers. I don't want to numb something.
Yeah.
So I think when I spoke to my therapist, like, she didn't put me down that route because she agreed probably with me where it was putting a plaster on it, because what happens when you take that away? What have you got? You haven't managed it and moved forward. But I understand obviously some people it's just crippling, and that's probably the only route for them.
Yeah,
sometimes you need like something to help you up and out, I guess.
Yeah, I do see both sides to it. Obviously for me, you know, obviously being off it for as long as I have now, it has been a massive positive for me because you know, I don't need them anymore.
No, I love that though, and it does show obviously exercise is the best antidepressant, and it does help. Like, it's not just, oh, I'm a coach and you're going to get fit and sexy. Like, it actually helps you a little bit further than that, and obviously mentally as well. So for me, I am obviously a big advocate on just getting moving, whether it's going to the gym, going out for walks. I'm not going to say running because I'm not into that. It's not for me.
I'm not a runner.
Just from the problems. But no, obviously it is finding what works for you, and I would always say, like, there's resources out there. I found a few books which I will actually rattle off. The Julie Smith one, Why Has Nobody Told Me This Before? Has anyone read it apart from me?
No, I don't think I have.
Because it's in little segments, so like, she's on Instagram, she's amazing, she does everything in little segments, so it's about exploring how you feel, not obviously keeping it in, but she does it in digestible segments rather than reading a whole book. That was easier for me. So on the days that you might not understand why you feel that way, you could read something like that and it'll resonate with you, and it does help. And then the set boundaries and find peace. I had no boundaries at one point, and I'm probably firmer with that now, because if you let your boundaries waver, people walk over you, you end up feeling shit from that. So I'd recommend them books. I'm setting boundaries, to be honest. So yeah. Have you got anything to add?
No, I mean, I don't know, I still, like I said before, I still struggle a little bit, but I feel like I've got a bit more of a level-headed element to it. I've never felt like I've suffered from it, but I know that you both have. But obviously I'm coming from my own perspective, aren't I? There's everyone's perspectives are valid, aren't they? But I think I've always tried when I went through, obviously what I went through in 2017, I tried to get a level head on myself and why I was feeling the ways that I was feeling. For me, it was more around a breakup and just understanding why I felt distrust. So that was trying to get my head around why am I not good enough, rather than. But that was where my kind of pain came from. So yeah, I think I've always tried to get a level head on and try and find out why I feel the way I feel.
Yeah, and I think with anything, like even grief, we don't get over it, and it pisses me off when people say, oh, time's a healer, blah, blah, blah. You don't. You just grow around it, and we're not meant to just forget and every memory that we had disappears from it. So it's just recognising how you felt and growing around it.
To live that new life, haven't you?
It's just that people think you have to be fixed or things just disappear, and they don't.
No, they don't.
So like, everybody has got something. It's just how you manage it, and not just keeping it in and thinking, oh well, I'm not allowed to feel this way, and squashing it down.
Yeah, I think I've always been one of those people where you've got to feel like you've got to have a wall of like an armour on all the time. And I think it was only until I'd started speaking to like a group of my group of close friends where they were like, yeah, it's fine, like, but you automatically thought, oh, I can't tell them that I'm not okay. Like, I don't know, it's a really weird thing.
That's the scariest thing, is, reaching out and admitting that
I'm not alright.
Yeah,
it's hard to do, I think, but you've also got to be in a really, what feels like, for me anyway, feel like a safe environment to do that. You've got to have a really good group of people, or at least someone that you think I can open up to.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think sometimes not even just reaching out, because sometimes in the past I couldn't think of anything worse than going to talk to someone. I just think having someone there to listen, or just like you said, sit with you in the mud. I don't feel like I had that. People would see you as having issues, so then they just distance themselves further. So I would say sometimes other people have to reach out to you. It's not just the person that's suffering reaching out. And I think sometimes it's too late for people to reach out, and then they're like, oh, they should have spoke up. Well, they probably did, but nobody gave them the time of day.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's one of the reasons why I wanted to do this as well, and I said to you, I'll speak about it, because, there might just be someone who watches this that, thinks, well, actually, I am going to talk about it, or,
And it's removing that stigma as well. Like, everybody should talk about it, and I'd open up my social media. All three of us, like, we'll drop our handle, and if anyone just wants to chat. I think when I last did my mental health post, obviously I got a few messages from people who were struggling, and it's just, they had someone to speak to, and I think it was nice that if you can resonate.
Yeah, if anybody does want to drop a message, 100%.
You can just come and chat to us. But no, I think like this podcast in itself, I was loving to get out. Like, I was nervous for it because it does matter and it's a big subject.
Yeah.
Not to say that we're all experts, but we've all experienced something. So I think, obviously, hopefully this might help. Even if it helps one person, then it's one more person than zero, in my opinion. So yeah, a few tips from me would be like the importance of self-care. Do you both put that as a forefront, like self-care?
What do you mean? This is just me being numb. What do you mean by self-care?
So, I mean, people associate this with a spa day, but even just having that time where you're not at people's beck and call, you're taking time for yourself, you're switching off, no social media, no phone, having a walk, go for a hot bath.
I am an absolute bugger for that. And I do get shouted at for that because I'm horrendous on social media. Yeah. And sometimes I'm just sat there scrolling and I don't even realise I'm doing it. And it's horrendous.
Yeah. I think you feel worse from that. I did it, didn't I? I spent 9 hours once on Instagram and I felt fucking horrific after it.
It drains you. It absolutely drains you. You know, and it just becomes a really bad habit. And I think that is actually something I want to improve on because it's bad.
So one thing I did for that was putting Do Not Disturb on, so you can set it at a time. You don't get any notifications. You're probably not tempted to pick your phone up because you're not seeing any notifications, and it did work. Probably the company that you keep. So since obviously being with Mel, we've spent all time on social media.
Yeah.
So
it's interesting because
you two are still in the honeymoon period.
Come on, Danny.
Sat at the opposite end of the coach.
Don't talk to me today. Come back to 2 days. I don't know. I think we had a brief discussion the other day, didn't we? Because like I've been single for a while, and I know you had as well. Yeah. Like, and we were just chatting around it, and it was weird because it wasn't until I'd said something and my eyes started welling up, like in the sense that obviously when you're single for a while, there's a lot of loneliness in that. In that isolate kind of, you know, feeling. Like I've had my own place. I've lived on my own since I was 27. So some nights, like your Saturday nights, for example, when you've not always got plans, like that fucking phone with that Instagram can completely send you into a downward spiral.
Because you only see the good things as well. You know, who posts the bad. Reel. And we're all guilty of it, you know.
I like to balance it out. I'll put a bit of dark out, a bit of light.
Yeah. But it's interesting because I think, and again, this is probably how we got quite close, where like we were obviously chatting on WhatsApp and stuff, but I think one of the things that Claire had said to me was like, just get rid of the fucking apps for a bit. Like, and although I've still got Instagram and as sad as I am, I've got LinkedIn. And I don't have the notifications on. I'm not at a beck and call of a ping of a notification. Like I'm on those apps because I want to be. And to be honest, I've barely touched them recently because they don't serve me any purpose. Like Facebook's fucked off, Twitter's gone. Like I think we spoke about Thread the other day. Like I don't need another social platform to depress myself with. Yeah. Like
it's
hard that I have to run a business through it because I don't want to say this, but I don't like social media and I don't like being on my phone. And I think, obviously, you said it, obviously, that loneliness, people say, oh, well, you should like your own company, and it's not about not liking your own company. What is it about?
I don't know, sorry, my brain went elsewhere then.
It's lack of connection, and obviously, with social media, you get so much disconnect because nobody actually talks to each other, especially in person anymore. So it's not the fact that you're lonely because you don't like your company, it's that disconnect, and obviously,
it is true
spend
that,
a lot of time
because
on
so
our
many
own.
people, you know, comment on things on social media, but then you'll walk by them and
don't give it the time of day.
Yeah, it's mental. Absolutely
but they'll
crazy.
nosy at what you're doing.
Yeah, people will always watch. I mean, how many followers have we all got, and how many do we actually speak to? So, yeah, let's communicate more. I think that's why I was so pissed off about lockdown. I'm gonna go back into lockdown as well. Nobody ever spoke, and it was just the government. Well, they made it worse with that disconnect. So, isolation. I don't agree with that. So yeah. Fuck you, Boris.
Yeah, again, just going back to, I think I was quite fortunate where I had a really good group of friends. I think there was a point where I always thought I had a really pretty decent like mental health state until that point, and I think a lot of people that was a bit of a catalyst moment where they probably realised that they were probably just running from either work or life in general. And when you have that time to kind of sit and reflect, I certainly did. Where I mean, to be fair, I think as I lived on my own, there was probably like weeks where I'd not seen a soul, and there was a point where I said to my girls, I was like, I can't breathe, and I don't know why. They come and sat in the garden with me, like, and that's where you just need like people just come and sit in the mud with you.
Yeah.
Just help massively.
Oh. Well, we will wrap it up here. So hopefully, people take things away from this and the few tips that we have got. So a little bit of self-care, communication, and obviously making sure you've got the right support. whether it's through friends, partners, or actually seeking out therapy or professional help. There is always something that you can do rather than just suppressing it and letting it eat away at you. So I would like to thank Jenna for coming on and sharing her story, her journey, and hopefully you'll hear a little bit more from us as well as time goes on, because Jenna's going to do a photo shoot. Which, and obviously it's a milestone for people, so she's going to do that because obviously she has done absolutely amazing on the aesthetic side as well as the mental side as well, so I think that's something to be really proud of. So, yes, thank you for coming on, Jenna.
Welcome.
Would you like to wrap it up, Mel? Have you got anything you'd like to say?
No, in actual fact, not for once I don't. I think we covered off quite a lot today. We try and keep these quite light-hearted, but sometimes you need a not a serious one as such, but it's an important topic for a lot of people, and one that we're not going to kind of take lightly.
No. So I would love, obviously, if you could share this podcast, leave a review, drop a like, and if you think that it's going to help someone, then obviously just share it with them. Coaching can help in more ways than one, so my inbox is always open. So yes, we will wrap it up here, and we'll be back next week. Bye.
Bye.